Hey, who's got the eggnog? Or we could go wassailing. You want to go wassailing?
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Do you know what's wassailing?
It's like an apple cider thing.
Have you ever heard this song? Have you heard this song?
Here we go, wassailing.
We had a different song. We did medieval. We did.
It's a good
what was
start.
it called?
There's another wassailing song?
We did Madrigal. We did this thing called Madrigal, and we'd all dress up in like Renaissance stuff, and we would sing. And there was a song that would go, Wassail, wassail all over the town. Our toast it is white, and our ale it is brown. Our bowl it is made of the white maple tree. With a wassailing bowl we drink to thee.
Well, we're here.
We made
back.
it.
We're here.
We made it.
We're still alive.
We made it.
Boy, I bet people were worried.
Yeah, I mean, when I stop talking, you kind of wonder if I'm dead or something, usually, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Jeremy, how are you?
Fat. Is that an acceptable answer? Working on it.
Yeah, well, I can echo that sentiment. That's where I'm at.
We were going to talk about things that have changed, right? Gravity. Gravity increased.
That's a life update. That's certainly a life update. Yeah, we're going to be covering life updates. This is Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
We're closing on Christmas.
Hey, yeah, there's not enough Christmas spirit in here. Hang on just a second.
What is?
Hold on. I just gotta.
What is happening?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Ugh.
Divert your gaze.
All right, sorry. Excuse me. Had to get festive. Oh yeah. Also,
Don't.
here you want a little.
What is happening?
Oh yeah. No, it's just a little decoration there for you. You want some Christmas lights, Aaron? Got some Christmas lights for you.
Are those LED?
Unfortunately, no.
Okay.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
no. But
I don't think that if they're not LED, then they're not playing it safe. Are you trying to increase global warming,
I am
Josh?
Oh, yeah.
entirely distracted by your shirt.
Sure. Yeah. No, I mean, who wouldn't be? Where did that power? There we go.
There's
I just have to say, the way that shirt fits you, it looked like Long John's.
Well, it's because it's all tucked in.
Oh, is this what you were talking about, the cell? Like the pajamas cell?
Yeah. So there's. It all started with the Gymboree. Here, I'll tell that story in a second. Okay, we just gotta kind of.
That was impressive.
Yeah.
I like that. Now I just want to know, am I the only one that was out on whether or not this box thing was going to happen? Did you know this was happening in Aaron?
nope.
So,
That was pretty cool.
anyway.
I like that. I like that.
We're settled in here now.
I have no big reveals.
Sorry.
Christmas surprises. That was a Christmas surprise.
That was a Christmas surprise.
So, wow, now I really don't feel, at least my shirt's green.
Somebody had to do it. Okay, this that time of year.
So Christmas surprises. That was a Christmas surprise.
Yep.
We recently had a Christmas surprise for my girls.
Oh yeah.
In the construction of a play set. So
I thought that was gonna be a 3-hour job.
I wasn't able to go there. I was at other activities, but
well, let me tell you, bud, you missed out because that was a journey.
Yeah.
There were 6 of us for the most part for 10 hours.
wow. I didn't hear about the 10 hours part.
Yeah.
My neighbors were kind in that they didn't completely put me on blast on social media for how loud we were,
Report
for
you to the city.
how late we were making noise.
See, that gives a whole new context to this story. I'd heard the story about the neighbors. I'd heard the story about the loud banging.
Yeah.
What time did you start?
We started shortly after noon.
Yep.
It was about 12:15, 12:30, somewhere in there.
So
Some of
did
us
you
started
really?
at 1:30, but we won't.
So are you saying you ended at 10:30?
Just close, just before 10:30. This is about 10:15 is when we wrap things up.
Only after pleading from the neighbors, right?
Well, they were, it was, what they said was fine. It was kind of we were too loud too late, and we thought we could wrap it up, and I in fact had to finish it the following day, or a couple days later I finished it.
I didn't hear that part.
But we were so close. We thought that we could pull it off, but it became so late and it was so loud that we had to call it quits. But it's now finished. It's complete.
It was an amazing playset, like ridiculous, fancy.
It wasn't quite like building the Ark, but you could fit some animals. You could fit some animals on that thing. It was really quite a big ordeal, and they've played on it for hours already. So that was a big Christmas surprise.
That is a big Christmas surprise.
So thank you to everybody. If you're watching this, thank you to everyone who helped with that.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Shout out a bunch of the guys from our church.
I wish I could have been there.
A bunch of the guys from our church were able to help with that. That was fantastic. Really, we just spent 10 hours making fun of each other the whole time. And at some point,
And a climbing wall.
At some point, Colin's going to finish that. He's going to finish that rock wall. So, shout out, thank you, everybody who helped with that. But that was a great surprise. We still, I finished basically wrapping all the presents at this point. Did you guys already finish your Christmas shopping for everyone? Is this
My wife is very on top of things with that.
Okay. All right. Very
so
good.
I think we're waiting on a couple deliveries because it's all been mail order. Basically, everything's through Amazon now.
Okay, we do a thing where I'll take each of the girls and they'll go shopping with me, and they'll pick out presents for each other.
That's pretty awesome.
With me, and so we've been able to do that already, and I got all those things wrapped, and they helped me wrap them.
Very
and it
fun.
was great.
That's
Very
terrific.
fun.
So, other Christmas memories. We've got Josh.
Oh, my favorite. This is the one about Mark, my brother Mark, one of our agents.
The re-gifting?
Everything. Like, so he would regift stuff he had gotten the previous year and wrap it up and give it to other people. He would regift, like McDonald's toys, right? Like just wrap up some weird gorilla thing and give it to someone as a Christmas present. And the best part was, he started actually taking some of my stuff. I don't know. It was mainly me. It wasn't like other people.
Okay.
I think he viewed me as an easy target. I think he's always viewed me as an easy target. And so he would wrap up.
I can't imagine why he would do that.
I don't know. What's the deal? And so he would wrap up my stuff and give it to other people for Christmas.
Of course.
So
Yes.
yeah.
You actually just reminded me of something for me, like something I really do enjoy with Christmas, and I did this a lot with my mom and dad, was I like to try to convince people that I got them things that I did not. I don't know. I just always thought it was fun. Like I had my mom convinced one year that I was going to buy her, that I had bought her a pair of house shoes from the Salvation Army that had bloodstains on them. And when in reality, I'd bought her a really nice gift, and she was very not happy. And all, I would go. I mean, I didn't get her. I didn't really give her house shoes with bloodstains on, but I have given joke gifts, and then to later on give the real gift. I've totally. Yeah. I think I gave my dad a packet of Nicorette one time. A toilet seat. I've given away a toilet seat. That's a really fun thing for me. I did find out with Danielle that was not an okay thing to do with her. Like she just doesn't appreciate that. So I don't do that with Danielle anymore. Yeah. First Christmas, boy.
Now, but you do the wrapping where you wrap the gift in a way that makes it look like it's one thing, but it's actually something else.
Oh, I've totally
right?
done
Okay,
that. Yeah, I've totally done that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, were there memorable, so Mark did the regifting thing, but were there memorable presents that you remember getting? Like I I got the Stretch Armstrong. I got that toy growing up. There was one I remember I got like NFL 98 for Sega Genesis.
Very good.
Oh,
Very
Sega,
good.
man.
And
That's
I
even
was
really
up,
way back there.
I was up. At some point I figured out from playing it, which this doesn't make sense at the time. It's like, why wouldn't I get bored doing this? But it was a blast. It was like the highest amount of points you could score was like 256 or 265. And so
That's a lot of points.
I'd be sitting there beating somebody by 250 something points, and you couldn't score any higher. It just wouldn't register.
You're just like running around the end zone.
Yeah, yeah. And so I just remember playing that for hours, and I was so excited when I got that one. Peyton Manning rookie card. You know, what about gifts that you guys you're fond of? We're all kind of we grew up as gamers, I think, to some degree. All
we
of
were
us.
talking about that earlier.
Oh yeah.
For you, it was
N64. The year we got the N64. Not that I was playing it. I was mostly just watching my older brothers. But we got N64 with Pilot Wings and Super Mario 64. That was a huge year. A lot of hours burned on that, and the gyrocopter and saving the princess and things. Rumble Packs were amazing too, like with the
Rumble
N64
Packs,
controller.
yes.
Revolutionary technology where the controller starts shaking.
Yeah, that's right.
And you can actually have memory cards, so you could save what you had done as different from everybody else. N64, revolutionary.
Yeah. But before that, with the NES, you just had to leave the system on. Right?
Yeah,
It's
right.
all the time. If you turned it off, it's over. Yeah, for me, it was a PlayStation. I remember the year I got a PlayStation and got Jurassic Park. Not a very popular game. Very difficult game to play. Didn't get very far. Wasn't later on. I learned later on I got some games that were more fun with friends, but that first one, I remember playing that game for like hours and hours and not getting very far.
Did you ever do Crash Bandicoot?
Crash Bandicoot. Oh, yeah. Definitely.
That one.
Very good. Very good.
Epic. Well, what about memories? I know we've tried to, for Christmas memories, I try to do things like with the girls. I remember growing up and I would make cookies with my mom. We made no-bake cookies.
Nice.
And so it's like that I'm nostalgic about it. It always reminds me of Christmas, making no-bake cookies or when somebody else makes them. So we have to try certain cookies we'll make together. With the girls now, we'll go to like Downs Family Christmas for the Christmas lights. Yep. We'll go Purcell Lake. They have a great display on all the Christmas lights around Purcell Lake.
Interesting. Yeah, I hadn't heard that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. And it's like a donation thing where, they've got something. You can drive through there, but it's just, you can give donation amount for some stuff, which is really good.
Yep.
And then I've heard that there's one in Yukon that's pretty good, but I've never
there is
hit.
a Yukon light park.
Chisholm Trail Park, I think it is. That they've got it's like a drive-through, and it's crazy. Like
there's lots of traffic and.
Okay.
So my in-laws live out in Yukon, so we will go there most years with the kids and take them through. But it's usually so packed. You're like, do I really want to fight? Being here for 45 minutes, just driving slowly, but it's really cool.
Like the kids really love it.
Oh,
the kids have a blast doing that. The Chickasha, obviously Chickasha lights are like, we went this year already when it was like the last day where temperatures were, I think the high that day was upper 60s or something.
Oh, wow.
So it was
monster.
It was like phenomenal that evening.
Oh, it's got to be cold.
Historically,
like, it's not Christmas. If it's not cold.
Historically,
you don't
every
dream
evening
of white Christmas. Come on.
Historically, every evening has been like it's been the most frigid, cold evening when we went previously.
Oh yeah.
They still enjoyed it, but that gave them more time because they got over there. They played at the park, like the play sets over there and whatever, and we were just able to sit down and chill and hang out for a little bit, look at the lights, and they love it. They have a blast doing that.
Surprising, no one our tradition has to do with food. So,
yes,
we tried to make my great grandmother and my grandmother made what's called biscuits and icing. I know I've told you all about it, but I've never made it for you before. But we fry canned biscuits. Now, my grandparents did it in an unhealthy way. They did it in vegetable oil. We use olive oil, so I mean it's a lot more healthy.
Is this part of the introduction of the way you take processed food and you mix it with other processed food?
Yeah.
And that's cooking.
That's cooking.
That's
This
right.
is-
That's
this
right.
is the early days of you becoming a chef.
It is.
Yes.
Yep. I mean, I have many recipes and ways to make processed food taste better.
I feel like that's a really untapped like restaurant market, and there's a lot of opportunity there.
So tell us more about that. Tell us more about the baking process of the. Was that it? Was that basically the end? That was the beginning and the end of the biscuits?
It's a donut. You're making a donut, but you're making it out of biscuits in a can and then basically powdered sugar. So that's the gist
That's
of it.
great.
Yeah.
That's
we do that every
fantastic.
Christmas morning. So we try to do it every Christmas morning.
Yeah, see, that's fantastic. Well, I try to involve the girls on cooking. Do you have any other like Christmas traditions that you're trying to?
Well, yeah. So we, they're really starting to come together. So basically, it's like there was a butterfly effect thing, you know, where like a butterfly's wings kind of beat in the jungle somewhere, and then it just changes everything else over here. Right?
Like
it happened. There's a butterfly wing in
like the
Asia,
Ashton
and then there's
Kutcher film.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Boy, that movie was dark.
So you
Great
basically-
Christmas film if you haven't watched it.
Yeah,
Shout
you
out.
should absolutely
Shout out to
pull that
Kevin
one out.
Malone's doppelganger.
So we basically have Gymboree was going out of business, and my wife was there shopping discounts and bought some reindeer pajamas. Okay, matching reindeer pajamas just for the kids. Okay, innocent enough, no big deal, right? Okay, their kids are cute, whatever. The next year, she was at Aldi. She found some ones that had snowflakes and some reindeers on them too. And she bought them for all of us. It was like, okay, with plain colored shirts, nothing crazy. It was just, okay, this is fine, whatever. We'll take one photo, one time, right?
Yes.
The next year is when it really started going off the rails.
They bought a pet reindeer.
She found these Santa on a scooter pajamas at Pat, some kind of foreign online retailer, right?
Yeah.
And so we wore those in Florida one year. Then the next year, she found some Grinch pajamas at Walmart. So you know, got the old Grinch face all over it.
Is she going to end up like making pajamas for you at some point?
Yeah, probably. Like Jean. No.
Next level.
Last year was when I felt like we really kind of came into our own with it, because we really committed with these Star Wars pajamas here, right? We got some Yoda, R2-D2, you know, Darth Vader.
It's the accent color. It's so bright.
Oh, I love it.
It
is very bright.
Absolutely. So
Really brings out the red in your hair.
thank you.
It does.
Thank you.
Is that a compliment?
I you know, just enhances the
It does make your
redness
beard
of my
pop.
face. Okay. As long as it doesn't make my face look like a beet, then I'm pretty good. So yeah, we got these Star Wars ones, and they almost didn't even come in time last year because you know, again, it was foreign online retailer, and post-COVID supply chains kind of had some issues. You know,
Yes.
and so came right in time though, and it just worked out pretty perfectly.
Yeah, I would say so.
This year we really took it up a notch. We got some pajamagrams, you know, like the official, legit kind of pajamas. I'm not at liberty to discuss the kind yet.
What's a legit pajama?
Dude, there's
I sleep in my underwear, so
yikes.
I mean, TMI. I'm sorry.
Oh, absolutely. That's we haven't been there before. So the big thing though, so that pajama tradition that really developed there.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, again, we really kind of came into our own with it turned into breakfast for dinner the night before.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And so we have like a Christmas feast, right? That was just super fun with the kids, where we make this huge breakfast. You know, it's like a bunch of fruit and a bunch of eggs and some cinnamon rolls and bacon and, you know, sauce. All this, yeah.
Would you call it breakfast? Would you call it dinner if you ate it at 6 o'clock?
You know, I don't think we have the
evening?
time for that discussion. I really don't. Like, this could get, you know.
I feel like
it's a really contentious
we've argued
issue
about
right
this
there.
before, have we not?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I don't remember where you're
Did
at.
it go
but
well? Did it go well?
I don't think we agreed.
I don't think it's resolved.
We usually don't.
Don't think it's resolved. Okay. Well, that's
So, and really, because the Star Wars pajamas were just such a perfect nerd thing for us as a family to participate in. It was really great. Last year, we started third tradition of, so we watched Star Wars, A New Hope with the kids. This year, we're going to let Pax see Empire Strikes Back. He's going to hear a little bit more of the story. It's a slow unfolding. It's terrific. So, yeah,
Have you introduced your children to Star Wars?
I have not. No. We have done the watching plenty of musicals and this, so they've inherited.
Seven Brothers.
They've inherited some of that stuff.
That's good.
Absolutely,
That's
yes. Good. But no, not Star Wars. Haven't done that. No, have not done that. But that should be fun.
Shame.
He'll enjoy it.
Yeah.
He'll enjoy it.
No, he's gonna.
Yeah, he's got to love that stuff.
You've seen Star Wars, right?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
I was a little worried there.
I think it's weird.
I mean, it's probably the case that Mackenzie is not. But what are you gonna do? For another time.
She was busy practicing harp.
Yes.
There is a harp sitting in the room.
There is.
Like right there.
It's right over there, just out of view of the camera. Well, what else has changed this year? Life updates. My wife's pregnant.
Lots of children.
Your wife's
My
pregnant.
wife's pregnant.
And
What happened to yours?
9-month-old twins.
9-month-old twins.
Yeah. So we're exhausted trying to keep them in the cage as long as we can. You know?
Man, yes. Yeah. How are they doing?
Oh, they're great. They
Are they sleeping?
they're sleeping really well actually. They'll wake up once in the night for a feeding.
Wow, good.
Maybe a couple other times.
Yeah.
And if
But
they're
anything
teething,
close
it's
to
rough,
that
but
is great.
Oh yeah. It's really funny. So I didn't realize that there was like a twin club where basically if you have twins, anyone and everybody who has ever had twins immediately is like, we're your best friend because,
like a fraternity.
We have this like shared suffering and pain together. They're like, oh, we know exactly what you're going through.
We've gone through that hazing.
Yeah, exactly. And so, no, but what's really fun about them, like as kids, is getting to see the contrast in personality where sometimes it's hard to tell what's developmental, like, oh, that's just this stage, and what's you're weird from other kids kind of thing, right? And it's so much fun because so Jada is just like a brain, like she's so smart, and we'll just like watch and survey everything, but like she doesn't feel any responsibility to connect with you. Like if you're talking to her, she's like just kind of staring at you unless she really wants to. Like just doesn't feel that social pressure at all.
Gotcha.
Right?
Okay. Yeah.
How does that compare to Noelle?
Oh my gosh. Noelle is like, she's like a Southern belle. Like she just like gotta wave at everybody. Like, you come in.
Yeah.
But also just really emotional or gets really sad if you're not like smiling at her. Like she'll cue off of your facial expressions mostly.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you look angry, she'll get really, really mad. If you look happy, she'll get really happy. Like and she's comfortable. When stuff's hard, she's just comfortable.
9-month-old twins.
Yep.
I know Mackenzie.
When do y'all do?
We're due very beginning of July.
We're
I think her due date's July 1st, if I remember correctly.
Summer baby.
That's awesome.
Summer baby.
Hey, but that's not a summer pregnancy, so that's nice.
That's right. No, that's right. Which she's done that. So, just hoping, praying that everything goes well.
Yep.
So we got some early test results on some things, and everything's looking really good. It's just health wise, it was really good. So, that's an answered prayer. Danielle's due date. What's
February 2nd?
Yeah,
February 2nd. Yep. So probably gonna have a baby February 16th because Danielle and I are procrastinators, and all of our children have been procrastinators coming out of the womb. So
what are we gonna do about cars?
Oh goodness, yeah. No, it's totally.
I have
a thing.
I have to start looking at the vehicles.
Hey, you want to sell me your car?
ASAP.
That'll hold 4 people, won't it? 4 kids.
It does.
Hey, highly recommend the Honda Odyssey. probably not big enough for where you're going. But,
No, we're gonna have to do one of those massive. We're gonna have to do one of those massive like homeschool vans.
I learned to
that's
drive
like-
on that stuff.
Because you're at 5
Yeah.
total,
Yep. This will be number 5.
Yep, that's
and
awesome.
we're at 4, and you're at 4.
Yep.
So yeah, we just can't. We're gonna have to get something with more space. Period.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I think you guys are probably in a similar boat that way.
Similar boat. Yep.
So okay, so either you delivered twins or you're pregnant. That's kind of where we're at on life updates
I'm
for
not.
family.
I look pregnant, but I'm not actually. I know that's happened. I'm not.
Common
Just
misconception.
clarifying. Danielle is.
You also closed on purchasing a house.
Yeah, I bought a house in February.
Yours was the one that you bought was either it was right at the end of
Yeah.
2021 or it
It
was.
was right at the end of 2020. So I think it was the last time we filmed was around that time.
Oh yes, that's right. Yeah.
mhm, Yep. No. Awesome. I mean,
Man, has
that's
it
an
been that
example.
long?
That's
Has it been that long since we
Yeah.
shot an episode of this thing?
Been a
like
minute.
2 years, right? Something like that. It's been a busy couple of years.
Wow.
Yeah, this market's been nuts.
Yeah, okay. I guess we'll recap that.
Well, yeah, and,
It's been busy.
and that house is
Yeah.
actually a pretty good
Yep.
example of it.
It's a great example
Because
of it. Yeah.
so we bought it for $228 in December 2020. So after some of the momentum,
Okay.
our neighbor across the street, who his house has like wallpaper and like Formica counters. We have granite and it's all really updated.
Yours has
whatever.
some pretty nice updates.
Yeah.
Yours is, yeah.
It sold for I think it was $289, $285,
Wow.
$289.
Similar in size.
Same square
and-
footage, like
yeah.
exactly the same. Yeah, and so we're like, well, could we sell that house we bought for $228 for like $320?
Yeah. So you're in a
world?
great spot already.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's
like
fantastic.
to have $80,000 to $100,000 of equity after owning it for 2 years. You're like, that's a weird place to be. Like,
Yeah, that's
it's
not
really
bad.
nice. Yeah.
And then the
Yeah.
interest rate you got on that thing was
Yeah,
like,
so we locked in really near the low. It was like a 2.625%. So it's like I don't ever want to get a loan again.
that's
I know
fantastic.
how everybody feels.
Yep.
That's so good. I know. I refinanced. I refinanced ours. I got like 3.25 on ours, but
So good.
so and you closed on the purchase of yours.
Yep.
So thrilling. So
Very
that's
exciting.
that's basically what we've had as far as life updates. As far as like how do we start recapping this year?
Jeez.
So we've got just updates on some stats for you. Total number of sales volume for Maven Real Estate in 2022, just shy of 16 million
Bam.
in total volume sold in the year 2022 for Maven Real Estate. As far as number of transactions now as a brokerage, total number of transactions, we're just shy of a total of 500.
Yep.
491 transactions closed.
Yep.
Getting close to
That's-
500.
That is awesome.
It's a great stat.
We need to
Just-
celebrate that 500th when we get
Oh, we're gonna have to have a party once we get to number 500
Right,
transactions. Just over $107 million worth of real estate in total volume
Oh, yeah.
that's been sold as a brokerage.
That's my favorite
in the
stat.
history.
Breaking
there.
100.
That's pretty wild.
Just
we broke
over
100 this summer. Yeah. Yeah.
Just over $107 million worth of real estate in total volume for the history of Maven Real Estate, and we're closing in on 140 5-star reviews. How phenomenal is that?
That's-
Thanks,
So
guys.
that's
Oh,
just
yeah.
Thank you.
massive thank you to all of our clients.
Yes.
Everybody who's been so supportive. Everybody who is referring their friends and family to us. It's
Yes.
just y'all have been
Thank
such
you.
a tremendous blessing to us and our families. We cannot say thank you enough. So, a lot of reasons to celebrate.
Yeah.
A lot of
Oh.
reasons to celebrate.
Oh, yeah. No, because you just think through like story after story after story and like person after person after person. You're like, man, there's been some amazing people who've really trusted us with some massive stuff. Like,
Yep.
and you're just kind of blown away. Like, why would you trust me? Okay, thanks. Like,
Oh,
it's,
yeah.
Yeah.
it's such an awesome gift from people. So
Who would have thought starting out what could happen to a couple of fools who I don't know, needed to hurry up and fail fast and learn some stuff. I mean, that's
Y'all
kind
need to
of
screw up a lot. Yeah, that's right.
Got to hurry up and fail fast, and then learn from your mistakes, and then try to learn how to grow and fortunately, even just on the side of growth of things, being able. This year we added Sandy.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Sandy as an agent. She does a lot of work. Really, she works all over Oklahoma City Metro as well, but she does a lot out of like Lawton area.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Based out of Elgin down there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So being able to add her, added Anna as transaction coordinator. She's been absolutely fantastic.
Very good. Yep.
Regine doing our inside sales,
she's
calling people.
a workhorse.
Yep.
Like, yeah.
So we've been able to add them this year in 2022. So just focusing on growth. It's been good.
Yep. Hard. So many changes of like, we got to have this in place and this in place. And this, it's just crazy schedule wise, but it's really good. I'm really excited.
And then we had some noteworthy closings here recently. I know the Reviles family moving from Norman
Carmelo
to Mustang area. So they were able to accomplish some pretty significant things with that move. So they were fantastic to work with. So I loved working with them. He had a blast as you helped them as I was away for a few days on I think I was in Branson. I think I was in Branson.
You were in Branson. Yep.
So
we had some good showings, and
so he had a blast working with you.
Hey, their son's going to want to be a realtor, or he's thinking about it. So
yes.
Come to the right place.
Yes. So, but they are a fantastic family. I love being able to help them out as they had to sell a place, had to do the whole contingency thing. Pull that off. We're able to pull that off.
And you can now.
That's a
it's a
huge deal.
shift.
Yep.
Yeah, it's totally different. Yeah, so that's great.
I know Jeremy JR was one that you'd been following up with for a while.
Over 4 years, we've been talking
I
to
would
each
say
other and
that's a
getting
while.
everything in place. Just putting everything in place, and it was awesome to finally see that through.
That's fantastic.
That's terrific.
Yep.
4 years of following up, and I think he probably even referred some people to you.
Oh yeah,
in the meantime.
we've helped his family sell some houses. We're actually about to list another one with him. So
it's so funny. Those are the funniest to me.
That's fantastic.
You've worked with all their friends and family before you actually get to work with them.
Yeah, totally. It's been amazing how that did happen to where I got to help his future mother-in-law, and just helping a lot of people. And he trusted me to do that, even though I hadn't been able to actually, help him pull the trigger yet on a house, and we got it done.
That's great.
And they're super excited to move in there.
So
Moved in on Thanksgiving. So
reason to celebrate. That's awesome. I know that was something where that was really, you're just so excited for them. It's just like we finally able to pull this off, and that's great.
It's like the end of this epic quest. Yeah.
I know, Josh, for you doing a transaction for the Hongs.
Yep.
I know they're some of your favorite clients. I'm sure.
Oh, they're amazing.
They're just fantastic.
Yeah. Hilarious to work with too. It's and they work well with me. In his review video, Richard was mentioning how he's like, I'm usually a Debbie Downer and you're not. I was like,
understatement.
That's right.
Understatement.
So I provide the lift under his wings.
That's right. That's right.
No, but they're terrific. They've referred several people to me, and they're just just really special family to get to work with. So I had actually met them back in 2019, and it was off of a Facebook message within that day. I was at a house, and then they immediately invited me over to their house to look at their listing. And so we put together a list by lightning fast. I ended up picking up the buyer on their listing too. So it's like this whole chain reaction, all this stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. And then they bought this house, kind of dream house, like landing spot. Plenty of places for their kids and all this kind of.
It was like 5 acres with a pool and a shop, and it was just
plenty of room for his boat. All that.
Yeah, no, it's a cool place.
But basically, just plans changed. Kids got married and moved off, and it was just kind of like, I don't know why this makes sense for us, and it's time to downsize, kind of thing.
Sure.
So it was a bittersweet moment for them, definitely.
Sure.
But it was pretty awesome. They were really worried about the interest rates. They were really concerned, like almost I've had several people listing like where they feel almost panicked of like how quickly they have to get it on the market because of the interest rates are so high. Nobody's going to want to buy anymore. Prices are going to drop. Like, oh no. And we had talked about a range of like, okay, based on the comps, okay, if it keeps pushing up like it's been, here's the high end, and here's the low end of what the comps are currently. And so kind of expect somewhere in this, I think it was like 440 to 470 range. And we sold at 455.
Wow.
So like,
you
that's not bad. Like it really isn't bad. And we would have actually sold higher because we were trying to sell to someone who's a contingent buyer. Like they had 3 weeks or so to try to pull that off. So very possible to actually sell your house.
Do you remember what they bought it for initially?
So they bought it for, I think it was like 360 and they sold for 455.
Yeah.
I might even be a little high on the buy. Like it could have been a little lower.
But it was somewhere around there. Yeah.
So like
it was between 340 and
2
360, if I remember that correctly. But it was like
somewhere like. And so
not a bad turn.
No, not a
2
bad
years
turn
later.
at all. Not
3 years later, basically.
Yep.
Time frame.
And it was kind of fun. It worked out to where my brother Mark ran an open house, and open houses are back. That's kind of nice. He ran an open house, and the buyer came through, wasn't interested at first because it was like not in their. It was too high for them price wise, but when we did a price decrease, the buyer was like, "Oh, like let's do it." And
then Mark was able to get the
Mark followed up. Mark got the deal, and we were able to close the deal together. Best part about that was when his buyer stepped through the ceiling in the kitchen. For whatever reason, she was walking around in the rafters.
She's
in the
safe.
attic.
She was
safe.
She was safe.
Didn't
like,
fall all the way through,
yes,
or else
okay,
we'd have.
Yes.
But Mark calls me and is like dying laughing, like
man.
on this FaceTime video, like, Josh, you're never gonna believe what happened.
Was her leg like sticking through the ceiling while he's on the video, or had he got her out?
They had already left, but it was like nice big hole. But they were great. They paid for the repair and everything.
If you haven't stepped through a ceiling, are you really real estating? Have you all stepped through a ceiling yet? I have.
Right.
I've stepped through a ceiling.
Is it just one?
Yeah, so far just one.
Okay.
That's not bad. That's not bad. Yeah. So
also, this is a testimony to how fat I am. I've stepped through a deck before. So the deck is supposed to hold you. So
you need a weight limit on that deck.
Yeah.
There are some ladders where I'm getting up into an attic and somebody's like, "Can you go check that out?" Or I'm just initiating going up into the attic and I'm just like, "I hope this ladder holds. I hope this ladder holds."
Yeah, it's like a Jim Gaffigan moment.
Yes.
That's great.
This ladder's not very strong. You're a fat phobic ladder.
So, Maven Rules.
The Maven Rules.
Maven Rules.
Maven Rules. Other places drool.
What sets Maven apart? Don't be a jerk. Don't be a crook. And don't be an idiot.
An idiot, not a confusing idiot, not a dumb idiot.
Every time you
Dwight Schrute says? What does Dwight Schrute say?
Yeah, it's every time you make a decision. Every time I make a decision, I ask myself, would an idiot do that?
If they would, then I don't do that.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Then I do not do that thing.
Yep.
So
it's kind of like the decision making of what's his name off of Seinfeld, right?
Sure. Sure. The opposite?
Just do the opposite.
Do the opposite.
Do the opposite.
George and his opposites? Yeah. No, that panned out for a while for him, but it was brief.
Yeah. So the whole rules thing or whatever.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you to try to.
Inspired by so Charlie Munger is a guy. So Warren Buffett, one of the most wealthy men in the world, billionaire investor. His business partner, who he's been working with for 50 years or so, his name's Charlie Munger. Right?
Not as popular as
not nearly
Warren
as
Buffett.
Popular, about as wealthy.
Yeah.
He's a huge Costco fan, so he owns as much as he can of it.
Oh, yes.
But he
Love Costco.
He is unbelievably brilliant. Like just tons of common sense kind of stuff. And so one of my favorite quotes from him is, I just want to know all I want to know is where I'm going to die so that I never go there. And because he describes what he does in life as trying to avoid folly. So he gives an example of back in World War II. That's, these guys are like 95 years old or whatever.
They've been around for a minute.
Back in World War II, he was, young gun meteorologist who was charged with trying to make sure that pilots didn't die in plane crashes. And so he was looking at the problem. He was like, how do you even begin to solve this problem? Like, how do you do this? A lot of late nights all by himself trying to figure all this out, right? So he basically reversed the problem, inverted it, and said, okay, if I wanted to kill pilots with the weather, how would I do that? And so, kind of started strategizing and plotting, like, what's the way that I could really, really hurt them with weather? And narrowed it down to like 3 or 4 things that he was like, okay, if I avoid icing conditions or times when they can't land and all that, I'm good to go. And so he just stayed really far away from anything like those conditions and kept people alive. So
Did he figure out how to manipulate the weather?
Cloud seeding. He's good.
No, that's Bill Gates, different billionaire. Different billionaire.
Too. Yeah, that's right. And so I basically spent a couple months. I mean, it was really just trying to take stock of Maven and who we are and identity, because I was trying to figure out marketing stuff, like how do we improve our overall marketing, but you kind of have to figure out what's the common thread, right? So like we had made this music video, and it was really it clearly was true to us and who we are and what we stand for.
We
right?
spoke our truth.
We really did.
That's right.
We really did.
It's just really hard to express what.
Yeah, put into words what we're trying to communicate with that. Sometimes it's like this is everything you don't want to work with,
right? And so, like,
that's not us. That's who we don't want to be.
Even when you see pictures of Aaron looking at himself in the rear view mirror of a car, and it says "Don't be a jerk," like Aaron. It's not Aaron. It's the character.
See, I thought we were just trying.
Duck-faced dude.
So maybe I misunderstood the entire music video. I thought we were just trying to be ourselves. Was that not the intent?
The money gun spraying it, or like waving a wad of cash in these people's face.
Was that not supposed to be the intent? Just be yourself.
My inner agent is an 80-year-old woman
named Gladys.
It's Doris. It's Doris.
Can we hear you?
Get it right.
Can we
come in? Let's see what we've got.
So that was
pretty awesome. And so, but it's like somehow it made sense. Like it made sense. It was the opposite thing that Munger does with the things that are most important in real estate, right? Like we have to deserve people's trust, because the high trust, this is people's whole lives are on the line with this thing, right? Like with this purchase.
They've got a ton invested.
Oh, one of the biggest financial decisions any person's going to make for most people. And so,
and all that they hear are just terrible horror stories from other people who've had bad experiences, and like it's really easy or tempting to assume that it's just like I'm just going to be another one of those who basically falls prey to a terrible process with unprofessional people.
Yep.
So
either somebody who doesn't know what they're doing and doesn't have like a basic competence with the subject, somebody who is just out to make a quick buck and take advantage of them. Just doesn't really care about whatever. I'm apathy. So like your guy, the jerk, and doesn't care about them, or somebody who's literally trying to cover up a bunch of crap.
Yep.
And I can't. There's so many stories of that.
Sweeping thing. Oh, that's not a big deal. Oh, just
yep.
Sweep it under the rug.
Like lying and lacking character and integrity. Right.
Yeah. Right,
and so you basically have the 3 people that people want to avoid are the idiot, the jerk, and the crook. And that's so our rules are: don't be a jerk, don't be a crook, don't be an idiot.
Yeah.
And the music video was a jerk, a crook, and 2 idiots. Natasha and Chad as the idiots. So me and Mark.
Well, that's really good. And so some of the things that you've produced out of that are like different pieces of marketing material.
Yep.
Even like our market guide.
Oh yeah.
That provides a lot of information that's really helpful. I
This
think
one right here.
I don't know what all you want to cover in that. At least briefly mentioning, because it's worth mentioning just some of the different, even like categories that exist in this market guide for the housing market and what it looks like currently. And
yep. So the goal with this of like what all Central Oklahoma homeowners ought to know right now. Since 2020, it's been this unbelievable whirlwind of change. And like a lot of times people would keep up with the first couple changes, but then they got lost somewhere on the third or fourth change, right? And this is true for clients. This is true for agents in the market. This is true, like everybody. It's so hard to keep up with. Where are we at right this second?
Yep.
And so this is an attempt to tell the whole story simply, right? Like with kind of three main categories: the big picture of like the COVID chaos, the rapid price increases, and then the indecisive interest rates, right?
Yeah.
And so trying to tell that whole big story, give people enough context to know, okay, so in light of where we are right now, what does that mean for you? And so my favorite page on here, it was one that you really pushed me to. You were not happy with this until it was like, you have to put that in. I was like, okay, fine. But it's basically a breakdown for who this housing market is good for and bad for, or just kind of neutral for, right? Like this market today, who is the recent shifts favored?
So you're saying that there are people that this housing market might be bad for some people?
Yeah.
Why would you say such a thing?
Yeah, well,
why would you say such a
if you
thing?
just refinanced or bought a house at a 2.625% interest rate, it's going to be really hard to pay a 6.5 or 6.2.
You're gonna have to look at your circumstances and be like, yep, I'm getting. Now we have helped some people who they even bought like not too long ago. They got a great interest rate, but because of life circumstances and the whole everything being evaluated, because it's not, you have so many people who it's tempting to make a decision based upon one or two pieces of information and that's it. And in reality, it's so often the case that you have to look at so many different factors to make an informed decision that actually makes the most amount of sense.
Absolutely. Does it make more sense? Is it a dumb financial decision, dumber, to have a 7% interest rate than it is to continue paying rent, which is 100% interest?
Yeah.
Like, what are we talking? Like, different, depending on your circumstances, it can change everything. And really, even like, oh, hey, we got to refinance on this, but our family's grown. We've had twins or babies. The other life circumstances. I want to be moving to this other school district because my kids are getting old enough. Well, at some point, your personal economy and the raises you've gotten and the overall financial picture of your household matters way more than the national market out there, the Oklahoma market. Like, the market should be a factor. Like, you should be considering it as a part of it. But if it's the only factor you consider, you're letting the tail wag the dog. Like, and part of it too is just you can't, like the idea of timing the market or something like that, right? So right now, Oklahoma home prices have slowed down in appreciation. It's not like the breakneck speed it was. There's zero expectation that prices are coming down because we've still had tons of relocation into the area and all these other factors like that. Like, you look at national charts even, like, then they say Oklahoma is the one that's just not going to drop, right? Because like we went up 32% when the national average is 37%, and markets like Phoenix, who are coming down, we're like 67% appreciation.
It's like double
in 2 years.
Double the appreciation over a 2-year period. Basically since there was COVID started, there was a lot of like inventory had dropped, demand had gone through the roof. You had a lot of population migration that was happening across the country in particular areas like Oklahoma.
Even because of policy stuff, like because of political whatever, the lockdowns and stuff. So,
but you have people who, let's just say this, people are tempted to look at something that's like, this is a decision I'm going to make based solely upon the interest rate.
Yep.
And for some people, all other determining factors that should be weighed, you're going to look at an interest rate number and you're going to be like, it doesn't make sense for me to sell my place or to try to purchase. Like, it just doesn't make sense right now.
Yeah, totally understand that.
That's
like
on the
There are going to
table.
be people who that's true for. Yeah.
But there are people who are just like, I've got this house, I got this interest rate, but if I can relocate because of maybe a job change or something, like even changing school district and they want to get their kid in a different school district, or for some people who they bought a place a couple years ago and their taxes on that house were like $4,500 annually, but they can relocate and their taxes annually on another house that will work for them, like if they're downsizing or something, all of a sudden their taxes go from $4,500 annually to like $1,700. And maybe they're planning towards retirement. Well, that's a massive number difference on an annual basis that needs to be considered.
Oh yeah.
Even with going from let's say you're going from a 4.5 interest rate, and now maybe you're doing 5.5 right now. If you do buy down,
Yeah.
it's like that's totally within the realm of possibility.
Yeah.
So there's so many other things than just one specific detail. And a lot of people, it's just important to factor in all the different pieces, as many as you can, to make an informed decision so that you're not making it just upon one or two pieces.
Yeah.
Really, for many people, it's one or two pieces and fear-based decision making.
Absolutely.
And
It's
that
overwhelm.
can't be-
It's overwhelm, hyper complex. Like, it's just too difficult of a decision to make. And it's interesting because those are the kinds of problems that Charlie Munger has such a big deal with, of like, you look at them backwards, right? And so what we tried to do here is basically look at it backwards with you and try to help you say, okay, are you one of these types of people? These are the categories of people who it's going to be the most advantageous for. The categories of people it's going to be the most disadvantaged. And so one of them, for example, is owners who must sell and buy on a contingency. So if you didn't have the option of moving into an Airbnb in between houses, like so many people had to do over the last couple of years, now's your chance.
You can do a contingency. You can do a contingency offer now.
Oh, and think about it. If house prices continue to go up, which in Oklahoma they will, if interest rates come down in a year or two, you want to buy now at the low house price and then refinance in 2 years whenever the interest rate's low, because then you get the best of both worlds. Everybody who's thinking, okay, I've got to wait to even buy until the interest rates are lower, you're going to be paying for a more expensive house. So it's for somebody who has to do the list buy and they've been restricted from being able to do that because they haven't been able to go to Airbnb, too many animals, too many children, whatever the issues are, too many boats and things in the shops. For those people, this is their time.
Well, and some of that, people who are hesitant to do that, they're thinking that the bottom's about to fall out of this thing.
Absolutely.
And so there's like a fear that's like, well, let's wait 6 months. Let's see what's around the corner. Now, but when you look at a 52-year history of the housing market and what's happened, which that's part of our responsibility to do, is to try to formulate some type of predictability that makes sense. You can look at a 5-decade period of time and be like, okay, based upon all these different factors, should we anticipate the bottom's about to fall out of this housing market?
Just a question for y'all.
Yeah.
Like a thought that I've had and like I've wondered about, and like I try to think about how to talk about it right, and I think y'all probably could do a better way. It feels like with housing, there's more pressure, and people feel like a cultural, like there's this like, you got to do it, you got to buy it the right way, and there's a very right way and a very wrong way. You got to enter the market at the right time. Oh, don't be the dumb person that leaves the market or enters at the right time or the wrong time. Even as much as I love Tony Robbins, I think in the I'm Not Your Guru, like I'm pretty sure he says it. He at least says it either there or another place. Like he talked about how like he said it was the wrong time to buy a house if you bought a house in 2007 in the United States, which isn't actually true in Oklahoma. Like probably the wrong time to buy a house was like 2014 in Oklahoma. or 2015. I mean, if there is a wrong time in Oklahoma. Anyways, he says there's like a right time to run.
1981.
I was going to say
1981,
Yeah.
92. That
I was
was
going to say late
oil
70s,
bust.
early 80s.
the singular
was-
time. My parents bought a house right then.
But but there's like this cultural stigma of like, you got to get a good interest rate. You got to buy when the market's down. And like, there's more pressure with that than any other, even the stock market. I feel like there's more people trying to time real estate and you can talk to somebody that might drop $80,000 on an RV that's going to completely depreciate in value.
Absolutely.
But they feel more pressure about buying a house right, quote unquote, right, than they do. And it's a thing that's like historically going to go up in value.
Wait 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What do you think that is, and why people feel that cultural stigma to buy it, quote unquote, right?
I do think there's a significant lack of understanding with regard to the history of the housing market.
Yeah.
Like there's so many built-in assumptions, and some of it has been because of like people's bad experiences.
Yeah.
But I think there's just a complete lack of. There's a significant enough lack of knowledge regarding the history of the housing market, and again, you have differences when you're talking about housing markets like Phoenix. Mm-hmm. Like let's take even taking like a housing market like Phoenix that has these. We've had significant
Vegas.
We've had significant appreciation that's occurred for the history of our housing market in Oklahoma over the last 2.5 years.
Yeah.
But Phoenix, a 67% appreciation in that same period of time.
Unreal.
That's insane. You're talking about a fluctuation in certain housing markets.
Mm-hmm.
It's nothing for some housing markets in our country to fluctuate over a year.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about 5 to, I mean, you're really talking about for some of those, even like 15% annually. Like that's not a surprise. Regularly,
that's somewhat normal.
That's not a COVID related abnormality.
Yeah.
That's literally like that's just how their housing market functions.
Austin, Columbus, a lot of those kind of hipster markets, like
And so
unbelievable.
And you'll see a lot of YouTube commentators
Yep.
make evaluations on a housing market that's not talking about like, it's not narrow to some specific housing market that's like Oklahoma or like Nevada or California or New York, like, or, Dallas and Texas and all this. They just lump it into like national data.
Yep.
Well, you have to take it you really do need to take it based upon your market.
Yeah.
Your specific, your sub-market. Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Your Oklahoma, or even you talk about Texas, you got to start talking about particular cities within Texas.
Well, especially when we're seeing mass migration of people from certain exits from certain places, that's definitely going to affect things.
So I think there's a lot of like, there's angst because of some of its bad experiences that other people have had, like even in their family who have moved in different states.
Yeah.
And those states also have different housing markets.
Oh yeah.
And so when all that stuff, it gets lumped into as if like, you're making assumptions based upon like national data instead of a sub-market that's like our state.
Yeah.
And you really do have to consider like the market that you're in.
Yeah. Well, and one of the other things too with it is I think there's a lot of social pressure to like people can see whenever you buy a house, and there's a lot of judgment from family and friends, and
it's not as private as maybe buying Apple stock or buying or investing your 401k or
nowhere near. But it's also classified the same way as an investment.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And so you're looking at it,
but you don't live in your Apple stock, right? You don't have to. You have to use your Apple stock. Or whatever.
I view it as an expense, right? It's like I'm not counting on it to go up. Like that's. Right. I think it's a bad view for your personal residence. Yeah. But most people do.
Right.
Yeah.
And so so they're getting judged on like a win or a loss on an investment.
But when it's not primarily an investment.
When it's not primarily an investment.
Yeah.
But it's the only one that everybody can see.
Yeah.
And so did you win or lose the game? Yeah. When it's like, no, how about you go invest in stock and or like in rental real estate that actually is a W. I don't care what you think about my personal residence. So that's I think a big part of it is because it's and for many people they don't get involved in other kinds of investing. And so it really is the one singular investment. So when they think of their inheritance that they're leaving for their kids,
It's a house.
it's the thing. And so if there's any wavering on a market or anything like that, or if any lack of maximizing it, you basically like let your kids down.
Is there a good way to tweak that? Like I know you, like in talking to you, Aaron, there's like a way to talk to help buyers look at their bigger picture and really assess, hey, how do you want to live for the next 5 years? Instead of approaching it from this solely like a value or, like an investment angle, which is there a good way to tweak people's perspective to help them see this is a place to live primarily?
I think you have to, for those people, once I'm talking to them, I think that it's really important for them to look at a lot of different factors. Like we can think of a bunch of questions to ask people to help them determine just like future plans. It's just like based upon what you do for work. Are you looking to try to get a job promotion? Is somebody else are you guys a 2-income family? Is it just one? What are your plans related to that? As far as your children, are they going to be moving out? And so are you looking to relocate? And then all of a sudden school district doesn't matter. And you open up a bunch of options. It's like we ask so many questions to try to clarify based upon their unique circumstance that they're going to need to ask themselves.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
If they're not asking them, and so many people aren't asking the questions.
Plenty aren't.
Yeah.
Plenty aren't. And it's not because they're ignorant or something. It's just they don't live in the real estate world on a daily basis.
Right.
And that's part of the responsibility that we're supposed to take on if we're going to make sure that they are making an informed decision for themselves. So I think there's a lot of, when I go into a conversation with somebody considering buying or selling, I need to ask a bunch of questions that they need to ask themselves because they're going to have to answer those questions in an informed way. And some of that's
Provide the clarity.
Provide the clarity.
Yeah.
Provide the clarity. And so I think it's framing it knowing that there's a lot of information that we need to gather.
Yeah.
I don't want them making if it's me and I'm putting myself in their shoes, if I'm them, I don't want to pull the trigger or make a decision based upon inadequate information.
Yep.
And so
an inch deep. Yeah.
So I've got to ask a bunch of clarifying questions about their specific circumstances. And even for people who are when we talk about housing market history, housing market history and inadequate information, I know for a lot of people, they have phobias about just economically what happened in 07 and 08. Yep. And so there's a bunch of assumptions built into that had terrible economic impact for people. But as far as housing market for Oklahoma, it's
pretty mediocre.
As far as
people don't know that.
But people don't know that, even though it impacted people economically in a bad way.
Right.
Not necessarily
your portfolio, but not your house.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so,
and a big part of that process is what you're trying to figure out is what are your alternatives. When you look at the kind of house you want to get, when you think about the logistics for you personally, when you think about your financial picture, all those, each individual one of those things is this overwhelming, crushing number of decisions or details that go into a decision with it. But you're trying to take the whole picture together. What are your best alternatives? People look at, and this is where I think they go wrong. They look at buying a house as a win or a loss when the question is a best option. So if you're currently owning a home and you've got a 2.6% interest rate and tons of equity or whatever, is it your best option to go pay 7% interest? Depends on some other factors, but that'll weigh against you. But if you've been renting the whole time, what is your better alternative to sit there and wait? There's nothing is better with time on that. Yep. You're not going to like what the payment looks like. But guess what? A year from now, you're not going to like what your rent payment looks like. Yep. Because your alternative is wait for inflation to catch up on your rent, and then the houses will be more expensive. So that's the question: is what are your alternatives?
I think it's asking clarifying questions based upon their specific circumstances, and helping them weigh the matter in terms of best alternative. Mm-hmm. I really think those two things kind of set the table for them, just making a really informed decision. Yeah. So
it's helping them get at altitude on this question.
Yeah,
absolutely. Because again, you don't just have one. It's interesting. People can. There's cognitive psychology stuff where you can only fit 7 things in your brain at the same time. And so you have to write things down or else you just feel overwhelmed on any one subject, right? Real estate, it's really and most people don't write down one subject, right? And get clarity on that one subject that's got 15 components that they have to weigh together.
Yep.
And they just sit there and it like cycles through which 7 are in their brain, and they feel like it's a never ending loop because there are 15 of them. And well, one of them's going to fall out and you're going to pick up another one, and then another one's falling out. And then you go back and pick up this other one, and it's just this overwhelm all the time. Well, in real estate, not only do you have an overwhelming thing, you have 3 of them. Your financial picture, what you want in a house, and the market and what's going on with the market. Mm-hmm. So it's like, all the logistics specifically of how to get a house done.
Sure, yeah.
So it just crushes people. But really, it's pretty simple. You just get a piece of paper, ask a bunch of questions, write down all the answers, and you point to them, and you're like, "This makes sense, right?" And like that's it. You know, it's so much less overwhelming for people when you can really work through it that way, and then find the best alternatives.
No, does that help as far as just answering that question? It's a really important question for anybody who's considering buying or selling. Yeah. Like, and I think any other way, it's just kind of it's like, well, that sounds completely overwhelming. Well, it's just like I think it's like, let's try to reframe what's overwhelming. Mm-hmm. Like, what's overwhelming is trying to make a decision that is something where you're spending, you got a purchase price of something that's $300,000 or more. And what's overwhelming is like thinking, I've got to make that decision in a way that is like not informed.
Right.
That's overwhelming.
Oh yeah.
Like, that's overwhelming.
Yeah.
That's more like going to a casino and playing the slots.
Yep.
That I'm overstating it a little bit, but like,
oh yeah. Yeah.
I would rather have information overload. And then, okay, well, let's set all this in order in terms of priority.
Yep. Yeah, and Charlie Munger's word for those are lollapaloozas, like realms that are just these overwhelming, way too many stimulus and too many decisions or whatever. So really, real estate's about helping people solve those 3 lollapaloozas.
I think part of it, what we're going through right now, is I think this kind of helps us transition to the next topic we want to tackle with this, is specifically talking about what has happened since really about May of 2020.
Yep.
I mean, really factoring in what's happened since May of 2020, where we really started, shutdowns had taken place now for a couple months at that point.
Yep.
But people were like, let's start moving. Let's start participating in the housing market.
Oh, because
let's reconsider
crazy low.
Because rates started rates were like crazy low.
Yep.
So all of a sudden you went from a market for our housing market that was anywhere from 36 to 40 days on market on average for the house. 36 to 40 days on market was pretty average prior to shutdown, COVID stuff. So everybody started participating in the housing market. You had population migration like crazy that was happening, especially for the Oklahoma housing market. You had people that were moving in.
Top 10 state, baby.
Top 10 state.
Top 10 in population migration.
Top 10 state for population migration. So that was happening. And you saw a lot of people who were retiring. This was moving to Oklahoma even enabled people to retire earlier, moving in from other states.
Because we're cheaper.
Because we're
lower price, yeah.
Yep. And so that was happening. You had a population migration occurring. Now you had a super high demand because low interest rates. You had lower inventory because of like supply chain issues and different shutdowns. Yep. So all of a sudden you had...
the cost of lumber, all that. It was through the roof. Unbelievable, like triple price, yeah. Anyway.
It was this incredible perfect storm that led to our housing market in Oklahoma, where you had all of a sudden buyers, they had to have something like $25,000 in their pocket. For the most part, there are exceptions to this, but for the most part, people had to have something like $25,000 or more just to compete in multiple offer situations, where days on market went from 36 to 40 to all of a sudden it was like 2. It was at its worst. You literally had like 48 hours for average days on market.
Like,
and
average
for average.
That is market average.
It was wild. Like you had people, like we'd list houses and we'd say like, we'd list it and we would tell when we thought that, like when we wanted the best and highest offers. It was wild. And that you'd see that frequently.
There were people who were like listing it in the morning and by 8 p.m. this evening, we want highest and best.
Yeah. I mean, there were so many listings. It was like they went on the market with that highest and best due in
Yep.
5. The only reason why it was 2 days is because some people were having the house be on market for 5 days and
Yeah.
You had
letting
to
it
talk,
run its course.
you had
That's
to
right.
talk through people as far as just like, here's the inspection process and here's what this looks like. And as far as, so you can do like a sight unseen offer.
Yep.
And so they could be confident with doing something like that. You had to go through all this. Well, you got to be willing to offer even like seller's closing costs as a buyer.
Yeah.
You had to not only pay your own closing costs, but you got to be willing to pay maybe a seller's closing cost, accepting it as is condition.
Especially for the best houses. Yeah. Or, again, appraisal guarantees. Like, we're going to bring this much cash to guarantee over the appraised value. So you're overpaying,
This
not
is,
over what the market is competing for, but over what an appraiser is going to tell you is worth. Yeah.
because you had so many people at that point. I mean, this is what's also crazy is you had people who were like, so I got to do an appraisal gap coverage. Like, how am I not? Let's just take in factors. Like, because we had this discussion on so many factors. Well, you had people who were just like, I'm not going to overpay for a house. Well, today it may seem like overpaying, but when this thing is appreciating at the rate that it's appreciating in 6 months,
Oh.
did you overpay for that house?
Yeah.
Oh.
People that bought houses 8 months ago and they paid $10,000 over the appraised value. Today, are they upset that they did that?
No, and you had that happening.
Especially on interest rates now. It's like,
And they were buying those things that they were getting a 2.5 interest rate on those houses.
Guys,
So-
my house, like when I bought it for $228, I looked at the neighborhood. I was like, there is no way this thing's appraising over $220. Like, no way. I'm like, I might even be able to bring them down a little bit because we don't have competition on it for whatever reason. And so, but now it's worth over $300,000. That's not
Contingency offers. Contingency offers. You could basically forget about them.
yep.
Yeah. Oh,
Like
yeah.
contingency offers.
What family can you stay with?
But this was a harsh reality talking to people about this because I remember talking like as we were discussing this what's going on at the time.
Yep.
It was like, okay, this is going to be really deflating for some people.
Oh, yeah.
You're
This is
going to be really sad.
this is going to be really deflating for some people because this was the harsh reality that people had to come to grips with. That was, if you're going to plan to do this, this isn't a matter of let's see 60 houses. This is like that's not
Oh, yeah.
that's not a great plan. It's really not.
Yeah.
Like let's
Let's
see
see 60 houses, make offers on 60 houses, and 60 offers later.
I think plenty of those people, what the outcome was it was frustrating, and for a lot of those people, they had to quit
They just didn't buy a house.
After
and-
4 to
because-
6 months of trying to look at houses, they quit. Yeah.
because the nature of the market meant that you had to put together a plan that was as aggressive as, and this is where we have to look at the housing market and help them make judgments. What's going to be an offer that actually competes? And for plenty of people, because of the nature of the housing market, it was just like, I've got to save up more money.
Yep.
And it was like, I got to save another $10,000 to get to the number where I can compete. Now, for some people, that was like, I can't do that. I can't do that. And it's like, well, what's the alternative? For some people, they had to figure out, like, maybe we have 3 vehicles. We can sell one of them.
Oh, yeah. Like, that's how harsh it was.
There were things that were just like, well, I really wanted something that had a bunch of updates and it was really nicely finished and that sort of thing. But for what we can do, we can get something, maybe it's like a little bit more square footage, but it needs some updates. And we can fix those things up over time. But we're going to go ahead and pull the trigger, and we're going to go because we have the cash, we can compete right now. And so you just had to talk through what's a realistic expectation given the current housing market and all the other plans and that they had for their future, and what is actually, you got the benefit of the low interest rate, right? You got the benefit of the low interest rate. You got the benefit of the appreciation that was occurring in this time frame, to where it's just like, I feel like I'm overpaying, but it's just like, are you overpaying when 6 months this thing will have appreciated by, on some of these places, it appreciated in 6 months period by like 7 or 8% in the 6 month window.
It was unbelievable.
Like some of those things, it was crazy.
Yeah.
So that was going on. You couldn't do contingency offers, so people had to figure out, am I going to live in an Airbnb for a period of time? Am I going to live with a family or friend?
Oh, yeah, go move in with my parents or what?
Yeah. And so all of that chaos was happening here for about 2.5 years.
one more detail that I don't think we talk about often enough. Do you remember some of the conversations I had to have with you about like when you're, especially for the low priced houses, you go and look at, hey, we got to go see 7 houses today, and you're going to see one that you think is the best, and that one you can't buy.
Yeah, you just can't.
And so you've actually got to throw out these top ones, and don't get the worst one, but get the most medium one.
Get the one you
Because
can
you can actually win
live
it.
with. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was the way I was threading the needle for a lot of these people who it's just like they couldn't bring a ton of extra cash. I was like, there's a way to do this. Like we can still actually make this happen, but you just have to set the hopes that you're going to get that perfect house aside and get really committed, because this one is still going to sell in 48 hours.
Yep.
But if you show up and compete with what you've got to offer, you can win this one, but you'll never win that one.
Yeah, which is totally different than prior to COVID. And, in 2019, 2018, you could predictably find a nice house and you could go and you could offer asking price, and you might even get a little bit of closing costs.
You could negotiate them down a little bit.
Yep.
You could get your closing costs covered.
Yeah.
You could get more repairs performed during the inspection after the inspection period. The buyer
For the very best houses, you could love the house, and it really was one of those things where you could be bringing money to the table. You could be paying appraisal gap. You could be paying your own closing costs, and still write it as is. You could write as is, and you could still the very best house. You would lose because there was so much competition.
Cash
for
buyers, like a cash buyer shows up and it's trump card, no competition. Good luck.
Yep.
They'll get a counter that's for your price, and then it's over. Like you can't buy it.
Yep.
No, and I mean, because one of our favorite moves is like, okay, a house hits the market and it's so perfect for our client.
Yeah.
And we get them in the door within a couple hours of it being on the market.
Yep.
And throw an offer so quickly that's good enough, like a little bit over list price kind of thing, that a seller just kind of breaks their brain and they just take it, right? That's one of our favorite moves for clients.
That is not.
Did it all the time between, kind of 2015 to 2019 era.
Yep.
2020 through 2022, good luck. I mean, you never could pull that off. And it was really frustrating because it's like, you have to do that to even get a chance to write your offer instead of.
Yeah, it was just like getting your foot in the door.
Yeah.
To write the offer, you had to be quick.
Yeah. Yeah. But like where in a normal market, you can actually sometimes steal some of the best houses and like get a deal on the thing because there's just not the intensity of buyer pressure.
Yeah. And we have a couple specific examples to look at together. I know with Havens on his house, what he did in that time frame. Let's see. He originally purchased that house. This was back in,
This is one of your clients, right, Josh?
Yeah. So it was August of 2020, and he bought it. It was like 282 or something like that.
This was like on an acre and a half. It was in Edmond.
Yep.
Had a shop.
Yep.
That's some nice
It's like
nice
1750
updates.
square feet. Kind of like 4-bed type thing. Or
So this was nice.
Nice updates. Yeah.
This was a nice place. 11013 Blue Vox Drive in Edmond. This is a really nice house. He bought it for $282. This was back in August of 2020.
Yep.
Bought it for $282. Now he closed on this in October of 2022.
Yep. Waited for that capital gains exemption.
Yes.
Beyond 2 years.
Yes, and so he did it right after that. And he closed it. He sold it for $385. And so
That
just
was a documentable $103,000 increase of that house in 2 years.
2 year
Unbelievable.
August of 2020 to October of 2022.
Yep.
You've got a 36.5% increase in value over that time frame.
Yep, because that was one of those kind of shop houses, and so it kind of overperformed the average in the market because people really like that kind of house.
But
they compete over that all the time anyway. Yeah. So.
But we have another example I wanted to cover real quick. This is one that was in Norman. Wasn't anything spectacular, but this just gives you an idea. This was one that it had sold in. This was January of 2020. So this is even to give you a comparison. This one, this is over in Castle. Was it Castle Rock?
Yep.
Castle Rock over in that neighborhood. This particular one, it had sold in January of 2020. Decent looking place. About 2,000 square feet. Sold for $220,000. Okay.
There's before pricing, like before COVID, before interest rates dropped, like, at that time interest rates were like 4.75% or something like that, creeping up. And so this was January 2020 that it sold.
This
for
one,
$220.
Yeah. This was sold for $220. Another one, this is a very, very similar comp, right? And this one, it actually closed in April of 2022.
Okay.
Okay. This one, as a comp, 4113 Stonehurst Street in Norman, it sold for $302,000. It's a very good, solid comp. $302,000. So you're looking in that time frame from January of 2020 to April of 2022. You're looking over for this kind of house a 37% increase in value in that time frame.
$82,000.
This isn't a house with a shop. This isn't something that's just like spectacular.
Just a normal home.
Normal house in a neighborhood, about a quarter-acre lot, fifth of an acre to a quarter-acre lot, 2,000 square foot home in Norman. 37% increase in value. And so that house is probably increased in value by, you could probably say 40%.
Yeah.
Conservatively say 40%
after that, like remaining few months that passed. Yeah. No, and it's really hard to get people to process how big of those numbers are, because it's a market wide thing. It was not okay. Well, that happened then, and now we're back to normal. It's like, nope, we are stuck with these high prices, which is good if you owned a house.
Yep.
So that's just been give you a little bit of a taste of what has happened in the last really 2.5 years for our housing market, almost 3 years now. The chaos that has ensued.
Oh yeah.
Where are we today? Where are we at today with regard to the current housing market? Things have slowed down a little bit.
Interesting.
Things have slowed down a little bit.
So
a little bit.
Actually, what's interesting? So interest rates went from the 3.25 that they creeped up a little bit to 3.25 back in February.
Yeah.
By August, they were 6.5%, 7%.
Yep.
They hit a high of 7.5% in October. And even though we had another Fed interest rate increase yesterday by 0.5% instead of the 0.75%, so it's slowing the rate. The current today average is 6.13 or something like that. So really low sixes is kind of what's typical if you don't buy a rate down or have a really good credit score kind of thing. Yep. And
that's with a 30-year fixed, right?
That's 30-year fixed, yeah. And one of my favorite stats is we are right now at this weird moment where Oklahoma is almost always lagging behind. Our average is way lower. Our rate of appreciation is way lower than the national average. We're usually 3% and national average is 7%, right? Yeah. I've always talked about how Oklahoma is boring. Well, good news. Oklahoma is exciting right now. Guys, we're not boring anymore. So where the national average has actually come back down to its normal of 7%, Oklahoma real estate is still, today, clipping at a rate of 10.59% market wide. And that's median sale price kind of numbers, right? Or I say, no, I'm sorry. I hate median sale price. It's Freddie Mac's home price index that based on appraisal numbers looks at individual houses.
Yeah.
I hate median sale price numbers. And so, the reason is the national market was largely driven by inflation and low interest rates, right? Low interest rates dumping money into the market and inflation just out of control because of that and other factors, right?
Yep.
Oklahoma also had these pieces of migration, right? Where we had population increase, high value buyer population increase. Yep. And so it really had a big impact on our values in our market. So, it's flipped. Oklahoma is still at a hotter rate of appreciation than the national market.
Now, even with
it's time to be in Oklahoma, guys.
Yes, that's right.
That's right.
Sooner. So, even without that being the case, it is true now. As a seller, you can do a contingency offer for the most part. For the most part, you can actually do a contingency offer, compete with a contingency offer. Yep. Hey, listen, this was still a problem 4 months ago. 4 or 5 months ago, it was still an issue where you could not do a contingency offer. Yep. And because you weren't going to be able to compete against 15 other offers that were over list price.
Yep.
12 of which were contingent on the sale of a house. Well, now it's just you can actually compete for the most part with if you have to sell a house with a contingency offer. As a buyer, you've got a shot at getting some of your closing costs covered.
Yep, happens commonly now. Yep,
we've already shifted, even with the appreciation numbers you're talking about, and what's going on in the increased value. Still, for Oklahoma. Now, as a buyer, you can get a portion of your closing costs covered. You might even be able to get all of them covered, depending on the house. You don't have to do a bunch of this appraisal gap coverage nonsense for the most part. You don't have to do that.
Yep.
Because numbers have caught up. Numbers have caught up, and so now appraisers, they're able to look at the craziness that's happened in the last 2.5 years, and they say, hey, I can substantiate the value on this house.
It's like, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yep.
Now, do you put any caveat on any of this with, like we've talked about, like price point and like 300 plus, 300,000 plus, and 300,000 less? Like, where do you draw the line on that in terms of like our inventory and?
This is a study that I want to do really in depth. I haven't gotten a chance to do it yet, where it's like you compare the houses that were 200,000 with the houses that are now 250. You know, kind of like group by group because of how much it shifted.
You're talking about like the kind of criteria, like it's this size, this much like a pool, or this much an acre, or
there's the 3-bed, 2-bath on a neighborhood lot in Norman. That house then, that house now, we're gonna have the same number of those houses, right?
Yep.
And so the question is, what are our inventory levels as they compare to 2019? So I'm planning to do that probably by next episode, but really, so there is a caveat of like the higher price stuff resupplied inventory faster.
Yep.
And the lower price stuff stayed hotter for longer.
And lower price is really like, what do you think is the very top end when you talk about the lower price that?
I would say below 300, but like really, especially below 200. Like below 200 is just bananas. There has been. It's slowing down now, but
and kind of what you're saying with that, right? Is like used to, like 150 was like a really like that price point was really hot. Now 150 is more like 200.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Yep. And so trying to kind of compare apples to apples with that of how many houses are currently on the market.
Yeah.
Because what we do know is, so the reason that interest rates changed in April, but prices didn't stop slowing down or start slowing down on how fast they were going up until August. Why is that? Because we didn't have inventory. Like, even though the interest rate had gone up and we were replenishing month by month, we were still so far behind. There was such a deficit already that it took several months to finally catch back up and be like, okay, now we're at a bit more balanced than normal, kind of. So,
and that inventory, like we were headed before COVID, we were headed towards inventory problems prior to COVID happening.
It was
and
this
it was
constant
just like
decreasing inventory. Yep.
And is that national or is that just Oklahoma? Like, I'm more familiar. Like,
I think it's national. I know it's Oklahoma, but I think it's national as well. Yeah, it's just you had a big glut of them in 2008, right? And so 2008 to 2011 is like kind of the worst part. And so it gets at its highest point of the amount of houses, and then it just slowly decreases over time. And we looked at it from 2015 when we got in the business until, 2019, and it was like, wow, this is getting hot. And then everything just got insane. And now we're back to 2019 levels. Even interest rates are back now where they roughly would have been if everything had continued to like normal. Because interest rates had been climbing. Yeah, had 2020 not all gone down the way it went down, we would have still had a higher interest rate, more like this. So we're back where we should be at something like a 6%, which is a balanced historic interest rate.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, even being back to normal market 2019 numbers freaks people out because of the comparison with where we just were and how quickly it changed. But it's like, well, yeah, because we gave everybody free money to buy houses. Of course.
Yeah. So. Well, it's like what 12% is the national, like average historic. Like, really, we're nowhere near that. We're still historically way
for
low.
what?
Yeah, I think it's 7. It depends on which metric you look at, but I think it's typically about 7% for national average, but then 3% for us is normal. It will go up to 12% very commonly, but yeah.
For interest or appreciation?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm talking about interest rates.
Yeah, interest rate, a really balanced one is like 6%. I say balanced, but like...
I want to say over the last 50 years, it's like 6.5. It's like the average on interest rates. Now, here's a big factor for people to understand on this. When you're talking about 6.5 interest rate, we are currently... Just let's say the last time we looked at this, one of the biggest problems was the affordability index.
Yeah.
It was actually like when you look at average household income and what's happened, and you factor that in historically, like just the cost of goods and services and all this, the affordability of housing right now, that has not been good.
Yeah, right.
And that just happened when the interest rates started increasing the way they did. So statistically, overall affordability we're at a place that hasn't been good.
It's not the worst it's been, but
Right.
it's not a fun place either. And that's it's funny because you hear people talk about the affordability crisis basically.
Yeah.
Now it's like, what's the market crisis today? Well, everything's expensive. It's like, it doesn't mean that prices are dropping or something like that. It's a crisis. It's a crisis. Well, yeah, it's hard to buy stuff because it's expensive. But no, you look back at the most similar market to where we are today is the 1980s market. Okay, which throws people because Oklahoma did a different thing in the 1980s than the national market did in the 1980s. That's a different caveat. But national market 1980s, you went from 7% interest rates, which were normal before then, up to 17% interest rates.
Yes.
And home prices continued to climb.
Yep.
Because they were fighting inflation like we are now. And so the fact that interest rates are going up is actually a sign of the strength of the economy overall recently. And that it's like, whoa, we need to kind of pull back. This is getting a little carried away here. We overstimulated that. And the fact that we actually didn't need as much stimulus as was given. Like it was the amount of stimulus that was given in 2020 was actually an overreaction. How do we know? Because inflation went out of control like that. So I don't know.
Now we are at a weird place where it's just like, if you remember projections on some of the stuff as it related to interest rates, there were a bunch of people stating earlier this year, it's going to be a miracle if our interest rates for the housing market don't exceed like 9%.
Oh, yeah.
They were talking about double-digit interest rates as if it was assumed that we were going to get there by the end of 2022.
Yeah, yeah.
There was a lot of that talk. That was very much like the norm for people's like fears and phobias related to where we were going to end this year.
Yep.
So it just...
Yep. And how it's just that it was those marks that are what, that is when the economy breaks or whatever.
Yeah,
like,
that was the way it was being discussed.
Yeah.
Which I don't think that's...
Hasn't borne out exactly.
Not
We hit a peak of about 7.5% in the end of October, but we've been drifting back down for the last couple of months. Not because the Fed rate has gone down, but because the mortgage rate, even though the Fed Treasury bond is the biggest competition to mortgage, like when an investor's going to buy something, they choose: am I going to buy a Treasury bond that gives me a guaranteed amount, or am I going to buy a mortgage-backed security that there's some risk involved, so I better be able to buy it for more. Well, because stuff is stabilized and it's slowing down how fast that Treasury bond's increasing, the mortgage is now a safer investment that you're not going to get left behind. And so the fact that it's kind of stabilized and they haven't continued to increase, we're not seeing 1% increases and 1.25% or 1.5%.
Yeah.
It capped at the 0.75% where they would consistently do a 0.75% increase. But now, yesterday, it went down to 0.5%. So it's actually like the rate of increase for the Fed is slowing down.
Yeah, right.
And so projections are, in terms of where people are putting money in the stock market for like buying different terms of bonds and stuff like that, it's looking like where we end the year on interest rates, the Fed rates even, people are expecting the rate to go up a bit for about the first 6 months of 2023, and then to come back down and end the year where it started. So, the Fed will do a couple more increases. The market's betting not only will it stop, they'll actually come back down a little bit and back off once those numbers really register. So,
but I do want to take this just a little bit, just bring it down to like who we need to talk to right now.
Yeah.
The buyers, potential buyers right now. Who is it really good for, like, as a buyer, even with the interest rates being what they are, who needs to give very, very serious consideration to buying a house right now? First place, renters.
Yep.
Renters. They've just experienced, we know for a fact, like there are some places who they went from $875 on rent. It's just like, just because of rental rate increases and what the market's demanded, They went from $875 to maybe $1050 to now it's like $1250 for the same place over a 2-year period.
Oh yeah.
Over a 2-year period. And that's not an anomaly. Like
Yep.
that's a lot of people have increased their rental rate from $875 to 2 years later, it's 12.5. It's $12.50 on a monthly basis that they're charging for rent.
Yep.
And so those renters who, for the most part, especially if they just did not have, like, you think back to like first time you buy a house, it's just like, it's not like you have a bunch of cash saved.
Absolutely.
Like it's not like they've been sitting on a bunch of cash. And so they've had to stay out of the market because it's just the market, the demand, the competitive nature of the housing market now for about 2.5 years has kept them from being able to participate. Even people who really wanted to do it. Well, yes, now is your time to try to participate in the housing market.
Yep.
Like it's enough of a shift where you can get your closing costs mostly covered, if not all, depending on the house. You can, you're not talking about these massive appraisal gap coverage amounts, paying seller's closing costs. Like if you have $2,000 or less in your bank, you can probably compete on a very nice house. Mm-hmm. Like that's the case. So if you're a renter and you just haven't been able to compete for the last couple of years, it's shifted enough. Housing market shifted enough where now you need to consider it. You need to give it a shot. Otherwise, when we talked about what's the alternative, is your rental rate going to stay what it is?
Nope.
Probably not. Now is your time to start considering, hey, is this the best time? Should I do this now?
One shining moment.
You're going to make Aaron cry. Don't do that.
I will.
Sorry.
It'll
Just
happen
start bawling.
so quickly. The ball is tipped. Renters. Like all of a sudden you can actually get most,
Closing costs.
if not all of your closing costs
Yep.
covered to purchase a place. You really have to have, let's say, $2,000. Let's just call it $2,000. If you got that in your pocket, you can probably buy a place.
Yep.
Would that be with like down payment assistance or something like
qualify
that?
for down payment assistance. If you qualify for down payment assistance.
The one psychological thing is you have to be prepared to pay the higher price now on the mortgage payment, knowing that you're going to have to pay the higher price next year anyway on the rent payment. That's the one thing for people who are like, well, but my personal budget currently. It's like, well, but you're about to get hit with that anyway.
Yeah, there's a lot of renters that are hung up on that.
Yeah.
It's just like, well, my rent's so cheap right now. Well, it is right now. For right now.
For right now.
Yeah.
That landlord's got to pay a mortgage. And
Yep.
that mortgage is going to be dictated by the current interest rates.
Yep.
But when you talk about, like, let's say that there's a house, if they're buying a $220,000 house, well, how much is that house going to cost them in 6 months, a year? Is that going to be a $235,000 house? Let's say it's a $235,000 house.
Yeah.
Well, for every $10,000 that you're spending on a house, for the most part, you're talking about another $70, $75 a month.
Yeah.
On your annual or on your monthly payment.
Yeah.
Well, what about the buyer that's renting right now and they're like, I'll just bite the bullet and I'm going to pay the rent and I'm going to pay higher rent until interest rates go back down. What do you think about that person?
For the person who's they're going to pay higher rent until interest rates go back down?
Because they don't want to throw money away on interest.
Yeah.
Like they're throwing money away on rent.
Well, and it's something, Aaron, that you brought up in the past is like when interest rates go back down and everybody and their dog that's been waiting for interest rates to go back down,
Great
we're
point.
back to
What are they gonna do?
what happened last year.
Yep.
Where you're having to compete for, houses where you're going to have to pay over appraisal value and you're going to have to do all those crazy things.
This is a
The way I
terrific point because in the 1980s, when rates went down from 17% to 14%, people were lined up in their cars around the block to buy
That's
houses.
what Dave Ramsey said
Yeah,
happened.
yeah, that's right.
New construction, whenever the interest rates dropped from 17% to 14%, there was a line of people waiting to meet with a builder. And that's the same thing that's going to happen when interest rates finally do go
So
down.
for those buyers, if you wait until the rates drop again,
You're going to do the
substantially,
crazy stuff.
you won't be able to buy again. Yeah, absolutely. Great point. That's so true.
You won't be able to buy again, and then the next time you're going to be able to purchase, how much more are you going to pay for that same house?
Yep.
So it's really important, if you're a renter, it's really important for you to actually consider, weigh all the other factors. Like, does this make sense based upon affordability and your own planning? A bunch of all those things that we need to help you understand.
Yep. Yep.
Like
Just
asking
get
you the
clarity
clarifying
on all
questions.
those Lollapaloozas. That's right.
Ask you the clarifying questions to make sure it's a responsible decision. Okay. But now in this housing market, because of there's a little bit of a shift that's occurred. You can actually, you don't have to have $25,000 saved to purchase a place.
Yep.
Okay. If you qualify for down payment assistance, you might only need like $2,000, and you can go find a nice house. Okay. Yep. So renters, absolutely 100% should give consideration because the housing market changed. You can actually compete now. Sellers who were like, man, I can't do a contingency offer. I'm not going to be homeless. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to sign up for that whole process. Well, now you can actually write an offer contingent on the sale of your home and compete.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I think those sellers, the housing market shifted enough, you can actually do that now.
Yep.
So you don't have to do this whole weird stay in an Airbnb, stay with a family member or friend, and, compete paying crazy amounts of money, cash out of pocket for appraisal gap coverage, and the seller's closing costs on the house that you're looking to purchase. So as a seller who you haven't been able to compete because you got a place you got to sell in order to purchase, now you can actually compete in the housing market with a contingency offer. Finally. Right. So those are the first two that I think of who over the last 2.5 years, it's just been tough. It has been sledding uphill trying to pull that off.
Yep.
So
the other two that I would mention as well are if you have high equity and you're looking to downsize, or you'd be a cash buyer. So you're not dependent as much on those interest rates. You're still going to sell your house for a great price if you're trying to downsize. Like you're still going to get a terrific price. But the reason it's better actually for you now is because instead of the crazy competition where you just couldn't even hardly buy the really nice house, even if you're unlinked on contingency or whatever, like you still just can't buy the really nice house. Now you really have a lot more options to pick from compared with what you had in 2020, 2021, 2022. So, I
mean, we went from a market, let's just say general numbers. Oh, what were we at the beginning of 2022? I know we reached a point where we were talking about like very early in 2022. We were at like 1,700
like
available residential single family homes.
Yeah, when you pull up the MLS and look for single family homes, how many are available at any given moment? Yeah.
We were at somewhere maybe even 1,600 something. I mean, we were at right around that 1,600 to 1,800 available single family properties.
Like that is
available.
all the houses to be bought today on Zillow or wherever. Yeah.
And now we're back up to over 5,000.
Yeah, which is super normal, very typical. It was shocking that we got below it in the first place. So now it's just we're so much back to normal, right?
For availability options to choose from.
That's like triple the number of options.
Yeah.
For people who want to actually take their time and pick a house and get a really good house, that's not arm and a leg, whatever. Like So I would say like downsizers and cash buyers, like it's a great time. Even though cash buyers could kind of still win houses compared to other people, well, now you've got way more houses to pick from. You can find that one that needs to be remodeled and all that kind of stuff. Just a lot better. It's a lot easier.
And I think in general, it's always a good thing for people to consider. You can refinance.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something. It is really important. And I know I can say that. I can say that more flippantly. Just having we've looked at the data, we looked at the numbers. It doesn't make sense for somebody to be comfortable with. I can refinance this thing in the next 5 years.
Yep.
Given the interest rates and currently where they're at, you can refinance in the next 5 years. Think about everything else. Like factor in all the other things that we need to help you with asking clarifying questions, understanding your circumstances, understanding your planning, but everything considered, you can refinance in the next 5 years.
Yep.
You'll be good. So, but I think those are the people who really, it's been tough. It's been a tough go for the last 2.5 years. And the people we just mentioned, the market shifted to where you can compete. This is a market that you can get involved in. You can take advantage of the equity that you have in your house, the appreciation. I mean, we just went through numbers where we know some people and the appreciation, their home increased in value by 35 to 40% in a 2-year window.
Yep.
So you can take advantage of that. Who knows? Maybe you can sell your place. You got some money left over. You can buy a camper. You can buy those Sea-Doos.
Yeah, nothing wrong with buying campers or Sea-Doos.
Right?
It's okay to buy things that aren't going to make you
That
money.
deer lease. You always wanted a deer lease, do some hunting. You can do that.
That's right. Just get a little more flexibility in the budget.
Yeah. Why not?
That's right.
So that's...
I tried to think of something ridiculous to buy. Couldn't think of anything.
Beanie Babies. Beanie Babies.
So, Beanie Babies are actually only a financial investment tool. There's nothing about them.
They're ever increasing in value. Beanie Babies.
Them and Pokemon cards.
I'm all in invested on nostalgia. Dude, Pokemon cards are so back right now. Like
Oh,
all
yeah.
the little
Yeah,
I
they
still have
definitely
mine. I still have mine.
Oh,
I'm holding on.
like
They're-
I feel the pressure as a parent. I'm like, do I really want to let these demons into my house here? Yeah, I'm just kidding.
you know what Pokemon means,
You're gonna be
right?
flooded in
Pocket
Pokemon.
monsters.
monster.
They're monsters. I was like, I was totally the kid. My parents got worried about how
I know
obsessed I was with them for a while.
we're trying to finalize the important topics we wanted to cover. I know that we did not discuss Pogs.
Well, yeah, Pogs was a big deal in my life for a window of time.
Is that true?
I loved them. That was great. I remember Collier Whitfield showed me them for the first time.
Did y'all have a yo-yo? Well, you weren't in school, so you were
yeah.
homeschooled.
No, absolutely.
Was there a yo-yo phase?
oh,
It was
yeah,
like
totally,
second, third
totally.
grade for me. Like
Get the sleeper and
they
do the cat's
banned
cradle.
the yo-yos at Lone Grove Elementary because it was so. They banned the yo-yos. They banned Pokemon cards.
Why?
I mean,
What was the reason?
I think theft. I think they were afraid of people stealing them. You know, I lost a really valuable Pokemon card. I traded it to somebody, and they said, "Oh, I'll bring you these cards the next day."
Stop it.
And they never brought me the cards. I've forgiven you. You know who you are. I forgive you. We're good.
I didn't mean to bring up some painful memories.
This is
there,
rough.
but I'm
I
afraid that's
thought
what
we were talking
doing.
about Pogs here, but no, that's great. So, yeah, how many tricks could you do with your yo-yo?
I wasn't that great.
Okay.
I wasn't very good with it.
Okay.
This is the part of
Walk
the
the dog.
This is the part of the show where we do some cleanup, and I basically look back and I'm just like, what were things we had to cover that we should have covered that we did not? You found out Santa wasn't real at some point,
Yeah, no,
and I totally feel like that we dropped the ball that we did not
Yeah.
discuss that.
yeah. I mean, I used to listen to like the radio, you know, like they were like tracking him with NORAD and all that stuff, you know. And the thing that did it was that, you know, we would open
You're talking about where they would update you on where Santa was located.
where he is at. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and I would listen, and I was very interested in, like, you know,
Where's the jolly guy at?
yeah.
Where is he? Is he in Toronto?
I remember there was a time where we would like open gifts at night. Like we'd have some gifts that we would open at night, and then in the morning we would have a special gift that was from Santa, you know. And
Oh yes, the big reveal.
and one year for some reason it just, I guess, logistics didn't work out, and we got our gifts at night. And I was like, man, that's a pretty good haul. You know, I got a lot of good stuff here, like more than I would expect. And then the next morning,
What's he going to bring me tomorrow
what can
morning?
it be tomorrow, man? If this haul's so good, and then the next morning, there's nothing. You know, and I really had to, I had to, you know, deal with some
crisis.
It was rough. It was rough, and I better be thankful for what I got, you know. And that was I remember that tension of like, I can't be complaining.
Was it explained to you? Did you just basically you had to figure that out?
I just,
you
you know, I was left alone to figure that
you
out.
had to wrestle
own.
your own demons by yourself.
I did.
So how many years after that did it take before you learned he wasn't real? And the betrayal.
I mean, it
wasn't
was
real?
from that, at that point, it was like any you know, semblance of it being real was dead from that moment.
Did you have to wait till the next year and be like, okay, I'm gonna time to cozy up to the radio and figure out, listen up for where is he located? What did he come back around the next year, Santa?
You know, I mean, we still got gifts, but I don't know. It was just it was more cold.
Yeah.
You know, just,
Were you like 12, 13?
it would have been right around. It was like the year after the PlayStation came out.
Okay.
So the PlayStation year, like that was the gift from
Gotcha.
Santa.
Gotcha.
And then that next year, I'm pretty sure that was the year where it was like it all fell apart. Just
Well, we had to circle back around and
the
cover
day
it
that
because
Santa died.
Man,
I feel like even openly discussing it probably helps you.
I feel like I just got some closure.
That
You
was-
know,
That was
like really the problem is you basically have government-sponsored deception of all the children in the culture. So it's
we're using NORAD to track Santa. I mean, that's pretty wild.
like, well, they would have the technology. They do.
well. I'm glad we circled back around and covered that.
That's great.
That's it. Let's bring it to a close.
Yep. Hey, if you want to know what's going on in the crazy market, you should download this guide. I mean, really, ultimately, I feel like we've gotten it clear to like 3 steps in how do you even begin to know if buying a house makes sense for you. It's download this guide, learn what in the world has happened in the market since 2020.
Yes.
You can go to, but we'll have the link in the show notes, but mavenhomesearch.com/LP/market guide or something like that. I should know this, but we'll have that on the screen
Somewhere.
here.
That's good.
So, but then really step 2 is
Roll the
getting
dice.
clarity.
Roll the dice.
Getting clarity.
Oh, that's better.
Roll the dice. My bad. I'm sorry. Head down to Riverwind.
Don't do that.
That's right.
Instead,
Get clarity
Good.
on what you even the 3 Lollapaloozas of information, right? So we actually have a questionnaire on our website that is kind of walks you through that, or we'll do that with you over the phone.
we would
right?
love to do that with you. We would
happy
love to
to
do
just
that with you.
ask all the questions we always ask everybody.
Listen, you can do that.
No
You can click
cost
on it. And
at
you can do the
all.
questionnaire. You can do the questionnaire. It's self-explanatory. You can just go through each of the questions, and we get that information.
Yep.
We'll be able to review it. We'll be able to visit with you and follow up with you. If you do not want to talk with us,
That's right. If
At
you're
least
like
initially.
a complete recluse who just doesn't,
that's fine.
we might smell bad, and you might pick up on that over the phone.
Or if you want to just judge us based upon this and be like, I don't know, I'm gonna go ahead and just fill this out. I don't want to talk to them
I'll
over
at
the phone.
least get the clarity for myself.
We love visiting with people over the phone, with them calling you, talking to you,
Yep.
walking through the whole process, seeing what questions you have for us. Just letting you know, hey, you know what? We understand buying or selling is not necessarily for everyone
Oh yeah,
at this time,
this could be the wrong time for you to buy or sell a house
but we would love to
based
visit
upon
with you.
all of your personal circumstances.
But we'd love to visit with you about it.
Yep.
Go through that questionnaire with you. It should
And-
be very helpful in providing clarity. So that's the
And
second.
once we have the clarity, then it's let's actually get an action plan together.
Third thing is the action plan.
So oftentimes the action plan for the people who it doesn't make sense for, once you have all the information about what's the market doing and where am I at, the answer can be, hey, you should probably wait a couple of years. You should get that stuff figured out.
Yep.
Like it doesn't make sense for you to do this short-term jump when you really want to do the long-term jump. And if you just got a raise and saved up some more money, like just take your time, then you'll be able to make the long-term jump and actually get what you really want. Like plenty of people we have to tell that to. There are also plenty of people who have certain expectations about the market, certain expectations about all their logistics and how it has to work, and they don't know the easy solutions to a lot of the challenges that we know, and different things like that. And so when they get all that information, then they're like, "Oh, why don't I buy it today?" And they don't feel rushed.
Yep.
Because the reason they concluded that they should just pull the trigger now is because they actually got the market information they needed. They actually got the clarity on their own logistics, their own specifics, all that stuff.
Yep.
And then they were actually able to take action. So that's, for us, it's about helping you by being smart and giving you the information, knowing what's going on in the market, being clear, communicating well with you to help you understand your specific needs and situations, and then being ready to take bold action, even if that bold action is buy today, or if that bold action is buy in 2 years, and don't think about houses for the next 2 years. So you at least know where you're going and what the plan is.
So you can formulate that action plan together. Like we help formulate that with you.
Yep.
It's very open. Like we often conclude those with just like, does this seem to make the most sense?
Yep. It's not we're
All this
telling you what to
considered.
do, but it's like, oh, okay. So in light of all this stuff, and we're crazy nerds, whatever, about all this stuff, in light of all these details, and with this and this and this and how it all works together, this is probably what makes the most sense to you, right? And
Or even
actually,
then,
yeah.
sometimes we formulate that whole thing. It's like, is there anything else we're missing? Like, is there some piece of this puzzle we're missing? And then you tell us.
New 7 pieces. Okay, back to the drawing board. Let's put all that together, and then So it's not like we're trying to force you to do whatever we're telling you to. We just know we haven't done our job in advising you until we give you steps. Like we give you the action, we give you the results that you're looking for. We help you execute whatever the best plan is for you.
And we'll often have we'll have homework. We've got homework we got to
go do it.
We got to go do research based upon what you're looking for. We've got to go do research based upon the house that you're looking to sell.
Yep.
We've got to. We'll probably have homework based upon that we'll give you.
Yep.
So that you give us
You
feedback.
better go look at these, houses that have hit the market in the last 6 months, whatever. Reverse the search.
We give so you give us feedback based upon the information that we provide you. So and that's all part of the action plan that we're executing together.
Yep.
And so this isn't a thing. Real estate and the way that our relationship should work should not be you get incessantly texted or called and it's like this. Hey, I was just checking in. I was just checking in to talk to you and just hey, just following up. Like I love following up with people. When it makes sense to follow up with people with something that is helpful.
Yep.
It's like, so we put together an action plan that if it's not, it doesn't make sense for you to buy or sell something for the next 9 months, year. You opened up when we were talking about just recent closings. You followed up with somebody for 4 years.
Oh, yeah.
4 years.
And that was
And he likes me still. He likes me a lot. And I like him. So there you go.
And so that's much more. It's just that's kind of a client agent relationship that we want to have with people.
Yeah.
We want it to be an experience to where it was just like, yeah, that's a long time, but you're talking about something to where it's just like that the way things played out, that made the most sense.
Yep.
For
There are
them.
lots of big pieces that have to fall into place and be put in place and take time to execute.
Yep.
We're talking about $250,000 purchases.
So
Of course, that's going to take some time.
So
in certain instances.
So the asks are going to be like, download the guide, fill out the questionnaire. We'll contact you to formulate an action plan together.
Yep.
So-
So you can actually schedule a time to book a call on our website.
Based upon what's most convenient for
and
you.
pick
and-
what
yeah.
time you want on the calendar. So
Yeah.
yep, absolutely.
Fantastic.
Yep. And, beyond that, just feel free. We would love to even begin answering your questions, specific questions about issues with the Oklahoma real estate market, because I really don't know other people who are as ridiculously nerdy and in-depth on Oklahoma real estate market specifically. And so there's just not a lot of sources out there you can go. Like, we would love to start answering kind of more detailed audience questions. And then, if you just think something's ridiculous, you want us to laugh with you about it, feel free to comment.
Man,
with
you
that
know
below.
somebody who's this has been a headache over the last 2.5, 3 years. Like you just know, like you got a coworker, you got a family member, a friend, and they just because it's been really hard on people, and they just bowed out. Like maybe they even looked at houses, they made offers on different places, or it did not pan out for whatever reason. It's like it's time. There's kind of like a let's kind of regather our thoughts. Let's gather our thoughts. Let's figure out, is now a good time? Because there's been a little bit of a shift in the housing market. And maybe they can actually participate. We want to talk to them. We want to answer their questions. We want to ask them questions that they need to answer if they're going to make an informed decision, and help them formulate an action plan. Because maybe now is the time. Maybe they need to wait another year. But we want to talk to them about it.
We will help them figure that out and put zero pressure to actually do
Yeah.
it today when it makes more sense for later. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
Sweet.
For Jeremy, for Josh,
Hey,
I'm Aaron with Maven Real Estate. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
We love you.
it's good to be back.
It's been a great 2022.
Woo.
Let's have another good year.
Thanks for watching The Maven Show. Be sure to subscribe to our channel for all the latest clips and episodes. Also, comment below with what you thought was the most interesting or helpful from this video. And if you want to help us out, please like and share our posts on social media. Thanks so much.